You've been the weak link dragging this family down for years, Natalie. Your precious career always came first while the rest of us tried to build something real together. The inheritance your parents promised was supposed to change everything for us, but you wouldn't sign the transfer papers even after my best friend explained how it would protect the whole family. This is your final ultimatum. Sign those documents today or watch our marriage, the family support, and everything we've planned disappear because of your selfishness. Hi, my name is Natalie Grace Harlan. I am 27 years old. Sitting across from my husband in the quiet living room of our home in one of Asheville's nicer suburban neighborhoods, I felt my chest tighten in a way that made it hard to draw a full breath. His words were not shouted. They came in that calm, measured tone he used when the decision had already been made. I had always tried to be the calm and resilient one in our marriage, the person who kept things steady even when life felt heavy. Yet the emotional weight of that moment left me feeling raw and vulnerable in a way I had not let myself fully acknowledge before. For months, my husband had spoken about this inheritance promise from my parents as though it were the solution to every challenge we face. He described how my mother and father had quietly set aside assets that would help us secure our future, but there were legal papers that needed signing to make it official. My best friend had been right there beside him, offering gentle encouragement and explaining how the arrangement would keep everything fair and protected. At first, it felt like a genuine lifeline, something that could bring us closer as a couple and as a family. I wanted to trust that they had my best interests at heart because I loved them both. Still, the more my husband pushed, the more my gut whispered that the promise was not quite what it seemed. That evening, the conversation had begun innocently enough over dinner, but it quickly became the ultimatum I now faced. My husband's eyes never left mine as he slid the thick folder across the table. I could feel the familiar sting of tears threatening to spill not from anger but from the deep ache of realizing the two people I trusted most might have been working together to corner me. I had built a solid career as a senior compliance officer at a regional financial firm here in Asheville, handling sensitive audits and regulatory reviews that required precision and integrity. It was not glamorous work, but it was mine, and it had given me a sense of purpose and stability I had always valued. Now the rumors were starting to swirl at work. My colleague had pulled me aside earlier that week to warn me that my best friend had been calling the office under the pretense of checking on family matters, dropping hints that I was distracted by personal issues and not fully committed to my role. The whispers were spreading fast and beginning to affect how my team viewed me. I sat there trying to keep my voice steady. I have asked you to explain the full details of these papers more than once. Why does it have to be signed today, and why does my best friend need to be involved in every step? My words came out softer than I intended, laced with the vulnerability I could no longer hide. My husband leaned back, arms crossed, the same cold certainty in his expression that had appeared more often lately. Before he could answer, my brother stopped by unannounced, something he rarely did. He stepped into the room with a casual greeting, but I caught the quick glance he gave the folder on the table. While my husband stepped away to take a call, my brother leaned close and slipped a small sealed envelope into my hand under the table. Read this when you are alone, he whispered, his voice tight with urgency. It is important. My heart picked up speed as I tucked the envelope away. That small act felt like the first real crack in the story I had been telling myself about our family. Later that night, after my husband left for a late meeting, I sat at the kitchen island and opened the envelope. Inside was a single page of handwritten notes from my brother and a tiny USB drive. The note said he had overheard my husband and my best friend discussing the inheritance late one evening when they thought no one was listening. The promise from my parents was not real in the way my husband had described it. It was a fabricated arrangement designed to pressure me into transferring control of my own financial assets and even influencing my decisions at work. My brother had written that he suspected my mother knew every detail and had quietly encouraged the plan so the family could finally benefit from my success. My stomach dropped. The USB drive contained hidden camera footage my brother had managed to capture during a recent visit to my parents' house. Footage that showed my mother calmly admitting she had been aware of the scheme for weeks and believed it was for everyone's good. I sat there for a long time, the screen of my laptop glowing softly in the dim kitchen light, replaying the short clip again and again. The emotional vulnerability I felt was overwhelming. I had always tried to be the steady one, the resilient partner who did not make waves, but this betrayal cut deeper than anything I had experienced before. My own husband and my best friend had been working together to manipulate me using a fake inheritance promise, and my mother had known the entire time. The tears came, then quiet and steady as I let myself feel the full weight of it without trying to push it away. The next morning at the office, the rumors had grown louder. My colleague pulled me into a conference room during our morning break and told me the whispers had reached our director. Something about me being unreliable due to family pressures. I could see the concern in her eyes, and it only made the situation feel more real. I thanked her for the heads up, my voice calm, even though my mind was racing. I knew I could not let the workplace fallout spiral out of control while I dealt with what was happening at home. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer to review the documents my husband had been pushing. My lawyer's expression grew serious as he read through the papers. He confirmed what my brother's note had hinted at. The language was crafted to give my husband and potentially others broad control over assets I had worked hard to build. As we talked, I showed him the USB drive and the note from my brother. My lawyer advised me to keep gathering evidence quietly and to consider filing an official complaint if things escalated further. The conversation left me feeling both empowered and deeply unsettled. I had always believed in handling things privately, but the hidden camera footage and the spreading workplace rumors were forcing my hand. By the time I got home that evening, my husband was waiting with my best friend sitting beside him at the kitchen table. The folder of papers was still open in front of them. They both looked at me with that same expectant expression, as if they truly believed I would simply fold and sign. The tension in the room was thick, and I felt the familiar pull of vulnerability tugging at me again. Yet somewhere beneath it, my resilient side was beginning to steady itself. I knew I could not ignore the evidence any longer. I walked into the kitchen and saw my husband and my best friend sitting there waiting for me, the folder of papers still open on the table, like some kind of trap laid out in plain sight. The familiar pull of vulnerability tugged at me again, but I kept my breathing, even reminding myself that I had built a life on quiet resilience, even when everything felt like it was shifting beneath my feet. My husband looked up first, his expression the same calm certainty I had come to recognize as the moment before he delivered one of his sharper jabs. My best friend offered a small, sympathetic smile that did not quite reach her eyes. My husband leaned forward slightly, his voice low and laced with that cold sarcasm he wielded so precisely. Natalie, do not stand there pretending you are surprised. We have given you every chance to do the right thing for this family. Your parents set aside that inheritance specifically so we could all move forward together. Yet here you are still clinging to your little compliance job, like it is more important than us. Sign the papers today, or watch how quickly the support we have all been providing disappears. It is that simple. His words landed with the emotional weight of a quiet accusation, hitting the part of me that had always tried to be the steady one, the one who did not rock the boat. I felt the sting deep in my chest, the vulnerable ache of wondering how long this version of our marriage had been brewing beneath the surface. My best friend reached across the table and touched my arm gently, her tone soft but insistent. We are not trying to pressure you, sweetie. We just want what is best. The inheritance promise was meant to protect everyone, including you. But these rumors at work are already spreading because you have been so distracted lately. My colleague mentioned something about the team noticing how preoccupied you seem. People are starting to question whether you can handle the bigger audits coming up. Her words twisted the knife in a way that felt personal, as if my best friend had been keeping tabs on my professional life right alongside my husband. The vulnerability I felt in that moment made my throat tighten, but I did not let the tears fall. Instead, I sat down across from them, the envelope from my brother burning in my pocket like a secret I could no longer keep hidden. I pulled out the small USB drive my brother had slipped me earlier and set it on the table between us. "Before I sign anything, I need you both to see something," I said, my voice calmer than I felt inside. The emotional weight of what I was about to show them pressed down on me, but I had spent the night replaying the hidden camera footage in my mind, letting the truth settle into my bones. I connected the drive to my laptop right there at the kitchen island and played the short clip my brother had captured during his last visit to my parents' house. On the screen, my mother sat in their living room speaking plainly to someone off camera. "Of course, I knew about the arrangement with my husband and my best friend," she said clearly. "The inheritance was never real in the way Natalie thinks. It is the only way to get her to finally contribute what she owes this family. She has always been so focused on her career that she forgets we all have to pull together." The clip ended and the kitchen fell into a heavy silence. My husband's face tightened, but he recovered quickly, his voice dripping with familiar contempt. "That is just your mother trying to keep the peace. You are twisting a family conversation into some conspiracy because you cannot handle the idea of sharing what you have." My best friend nodded beside him, her expression shifting to one of gentle disappointment. "Natalie, you have always been the resilient one, but this paranoia is not like you. We are your husband and your best friend. Why would we lie about something that benefits all of us?" Their words felt like another layer of betrayal delivered with just enough sarcasm to make my stomach twist, yet I sat there absorbing it, all the emotional vulnerability raw and unfiltered. I had trusted them both completely, and now the footage proved my mother had known the entire scheme from the beginning. The fake inheritance promise was not a gift. It was a carefully constructed pressure point they had all agreed upon. My phone buzzed on the counter and I glanced at the screen. It was a text from my colleague. The director just pulled me aside. "The rumors about your family distractions are getting louder. Someone mentioned it might affect the promotion review next week. Call me when you can." The message landed like another quiet blow, the workplace consequences of the betrayal becoming very real. I felt the familiar ache of uncertainty, the vulnerable part of me wondering if my entire professional life was about to unravel because of the people I loved most. Yet beneath that, my resilient side was quietly gathering strength. I excused myself for a moment and stepped into the hallway to reply to my colleague, keeping my response measured. She promised to keep me updated, but the exchange left me with a lingering sense of dread about how much more damage the rumors could do before I could stop them. When I returned to the kitchen, my brother had arrived unannounced again, standing awkwardly near the doorway. He caught my eye and gave a small nod, confirming he had more documents tucked in his jacket. My husband noticed the shift in the room immediately and let out a short, bitter laugh. "Great, now your brother's involved too. This is exactly why we need to finalize this today. Natalie, your family is falling apart because you refuse to put us first." My brother did not rise to the bait. Instead, he slipped the additional papers onto the table, while my husband's attention was elsewhere, a fresh set of notes outlining how the inheritance language would have transferred control of certain assets I had built through my compliance work directly to my husband. The hidden camera footage had already cracked open the truth, but these documents showed the full extent of the planning, including emails my mother had exchanged with my husband weeks earlier. The emotional weight of it all pressed down harder as I processed everything in real time. I had always tried to be the calm one, the partner who absorbed the tension and kept moving forward. But this betrayal from my husband, my best friend, and the quiet knowledge my mother had held on to felt like it was unraveling years of quiet trust. My best friend tried one more time, her voice soft, yet edged with that same psychological jab I had come to expect. You are making this so much harder than it needs to be. Think about what you are risking: your marriage, your reputation at work, the family support that has always been there. Just sign and we can all move past this. My husband's eyes met mine with cold finality. This is your last chance, Natalie. Sign now or everything changes starting tonight. I did not sign. Instead, I gathered the papers, the USB drive, and my brother's additional documents and told them I needed the night to think. The vulnerability I felt walking away from that table was profound, but so was the quiet resolve building inside me. Later that evening, I met with my lawyer again, showing him everything I had. He reviewed the materials carefully and confirmed that filing an official complaint through the proper channels, both at work and potentially with authorities, if the financial manipulation crossed lines, would be the safest next step to protect myself. The conversation left me feeling exposed, yet strangely steadied. The emotional rawness still there, but no longer paralyzing. The next morning at the office, the rumors had escalated further. My colleague met me in the break room, her face tense. The director wants to see you this afternoon. Word is someone higher up heard you might be dealing with personal issues that could impact deadlines. I tried to shut it down, but it is spreading fast. My heart sank at the news, the workplace consequences of the betrayal becoming very real. I thanked her and headed into my meeting with the director, keeping my composure even as the vulnerability threatened to surface again. The discussion was professional but pointed, leaving me with another sense of uncertainty about how much longer my role would remain secure if the rumors continued unchecked. That afternoon, my phone rang as I was leaving the building. It was my mother. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but I could hear the undercurrent of the scheme she had known about all along. Natalie, your father and I heard things are not going well at home. We are coming over this evening to talk some sense into everyone. This inheritance situation is for the best. Trust me. The call ended before I could respond fully, leaving me standing in the parking lot with my pulse quickening. My brother texted me a moment later. I just found out they are bringing more paperwork. Be careful. The truth about my mother knowing the entire fake inheritance promise was now fully out in the open, and with my husband and my best friend still pushing hard, the pressure felt like it was reaching a breaking point. I drove home that evening with the weight of everything pressing on me, the emotional vulnerability mixing with a growing sense of clarity. I had the evidence, the support of my brother and my lawyer, and the quiet strength I had always carried. But as I pulled into the driveway and saw my parents' car already parked there beside my husband's, I realized the next conversation was going to force everything into the open once and for all. My resilient side held steady, but the ache of what this might cost my family support lingered like a shadow I could not quite shake. As I pulled into the driveway that evening, the familiar sight of my parents' car parked right beside my husband's sent a fresh wave of emotional vulnerability through me. The house lights glowed softly against the upscale suburban quiet of our Asheville neighborhood, but the warmth I used to feel coming home had vanished. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands still on the steering wheel, letting the calm, reflective part of myself steady the ache in my chest. I had always tried to be the resilient one, the partner who absorbed the tension and kept our life moving forward. But tonight, every piece of evidence I carried felt like it was pressing against my heart. I took a slow breath and walked inside the folder, USB drive, and my brother's documents tucked securely in my bag. The living room was already full when I stepped through the door. My husband and my best friend sat on the couch, their expressions expectant. My mother and father were there too. My mother perched on the edge of the armchair with her usual composed posture, my father standing near the window. My brother had arrived moments before me and gave me a subtle nod from the doorway, his presence a quiet anchor in the room. The air felt thick with unspoken expectations, and the vulnerability I had been carrying all day threatened to surface again. My husband stood first, his voice calm but edged with that familiar sarcasm. Good you are home. Your parents drove over because they are worried about how you are handling this. The inheritance papers are still on the table. We can finish this as a family tonight. My mother offered a gentle smile, the kind that had always made me want to believe she had my best interests at heart. Natalie, we have all been talking. The promise we made was to help everyone move forward. Your husband and my best friend have been so patient. Why make this harder than it needs to be? Her words landed softly, but they carried the weight of everything my brother's hidden camera footage had revealed. I felt the emotional sting deep in my chest, the raw ache of knowing she had been aware of the entire scheme from the start. Yet I kept my posture steady, the resilient part of me refusing to crumble, even as tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I set my bag down and pulled out the USB drive without a word. The room grew quieter as I connected it to the television, my hands trembling slightly but my voice remaining calm. Before anyone says another word about the inheritance, I need you to watch this. I pressed play. The hidden camera footage filled the screen, my mother sitting in her own living room weeks earlier, speaking plainly to someone off camera. Of course, I knew about the arrangement with my husband and my best friend. She said clearly on the recording, the inheritance was never real the way Natalie thinks it is. It is the only way to get her to finally contribute what she owes this family. She has always been so focused on her career that she forgets we all have to pull together. The clip ended and the silence that followed felt deafening. My mother's face paled, but she recovered quickly, her tone shifting to one of gentle disappointment. That footage is taken out of context, Natalie. I was trying to keep the peace. My husband let out a short, bitter laugh, crossing his arms. See, you are blowing this way out of proportion again. Your mother knew because she cares about all of us, not because there was some grand conspiracy. Sign the papers and stop turning your family against you. My best friend nodded beside him, her voice soft, but laced with the same psychological jab I had come to expect. We are your husband and your best friend, Natalie. We have been trying to protect you from your own stubbornness. The workplace rumors are already spreading because of how distracted you have been. Do not make us the villains here. The vulnerability hit me hard. In that moment, a quiet wave of heartbreak that made my throat tighten. I had trusted them all so completely, and hearing my mother's own words confirmed on camera made the betrayal feel final. Yet beneath the emotional rawness, my calm resilience held firm. I looked at each of them in turn, my voice steady even though tears slipped down my cheeks. I am not signing anything. The inheritance was never real. It was a fake promise you all used to pressure me into handing over control of my assets and my decisions. My mother knew every detail, and instead of protecting me, she helped orchestrate it. I have the footage, the documents my brother slipped me, and the emails. I am done being manipulated. My father shifted uncomfortably, but my mother leaned forward, her expression hardening just slightly. You are overreacting, Natalie. Family looks out for each other. We thought this would bring us all closer. My brother stepped forward, then his voice quiet but firm. Mom, I heard the conversations too. You told my husband exactly how to frame the papers so Natalie would feel like she had no choice. This was not about family. It was about control. The room tensed further, the emotional undercurrent thickening as my husband's sarcasm turned sharper. So now your brother is feeding you lies too. This is exactly why we needed the ultimatum. Your career, your independence, it has always come before us. Sign or watch the family support vanish tonight. I felt the lingering ache of that threat, the vulnerable part of me mourning the marriage and friendships I thought we had built. But the calm, reflective voice inside me knew what I had to do. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer, putting the call on speaker so everyone could hear. My lawyer's voice came through clearly as I explained the situation and asked him to prepare the official complaint for financial manipulation and to coordinate with my workplace human resources about the spreading rumors. My lawyer confirmed he would file everything first thing in the morning and advised me to document every interaction moving forward. The call ended and the room fell into stunned silence once more. The next few days unfolded with a quiet intensity that tested every ounce of my resilience. At work the following morning, I met with my colleague and the director, presenting the evidence I had gathered and filing the official complaint through human resources. The rumors that had threatened my position stopped almost immediately once the complaint was logged. My colleague later told me the director had taken it seriously and issued a clear statement that personal matters would not be used to undermine professional standing. The karma of that official complaint triggered a swift shift. My team rallied around me, and the promotion review that had been in jeopardy moved forward in my favor. I felt a quiet empowerment settle over me, the kind that comes from choosing self-worth after years of quiet compromise. At home, the consequences were just as decisive. My husband moved out the following weekend after realizing the documents would never be signed and that any further pressure could lead to legal consequences. My best friend reached out once with a half-hearted apology, but the friendship that had once felt like a lifeline now felt hollow. My parents tried one final visit, my mother insisting she had only wanted what was best, but I met them at the door with calm finality. The family support you threatened to take away is already gone, I told them softly. I am choosing my peace instead. They left without the signatures they had wanted, and the silence that followed felt both freeing and heavy with unresolved tension. In the weeks that came after I settled into a new rhythm in our quiet Asheville suburb, the house felt different without the constant undercurrent of expectation, and I found myself reflecting on how the fake inheritance promise had exposed cracks I had ignored for too long. My brother checked in often, a steady presence who had risked his own standing in the family to slip me the truth. My lawyer became more than just my lawyer. He offered practical advice that helped me secure my finances and set clear legal boundaries. The emotional vulnerability lingered in quiet moments, especially late at night, when I thought about the marriage and the best friend I had lost, but it no longer paralyzed me. Instead, it reminded me of the strength I had always carried. I learned that boundaries protect your peace in the most profound way. Choosing myself was not about revenge or winning some grand battle. It was about refusing to let anyone use a fake promise or workplace rumors to diminish my worth. The official complaint had triggered the karma that protected my career, and walking away from the manipulation gave me a quietly empowered freedom I had never fully known before. There was still a lingering tension, a soft ache for the family I once believed in, but it no longer defined me. I was 27, steady in my resilience and finally living on my own terms. Thank you for listening to my story. It means more than you know to share it with you. Would you walk away from a marriage and a best friend the moment you realized the inheritance promise they kept pushing was built entirely on manipulation, especially when your own mother had known the entire scheme all along?